When it comes to ancient mysteries and alternative theories, few subjects are as intriguing as the Anunnaki. Who were these beings that the Sumerians worshipped as gods? Did they really come from another planet to create humanity as a slave race? And if so, what was their ultimate goal? These are just some of the questions that have made the Anunnaki such a popular topic of debate and speculation. The history of these mysterious creatures is complex and accompanied by many different theories and interpretations. Some believe that the Anunnaki are ancient extraterrestrial beings who visited Earth in the distant past, while others consider them mythical deities created by the human imagination. A larger group of people also support the belief that there's a deeper truth to be revealed about the Anunnaki and their place in human history. The origins and identity of the Anunnaki remain the subject of much debate and speculation. According to the ancient Sumerians, they were a group of deities who lived on Nibiru, a supposed planet beyond the orbit of Pluto. The Sumerians believed that the Anunnaki came to Earth in search of gold, which they needed for their own purposes. They are said to have established a colony in Mesopotamia, where they taught the people various skills and technologies, including agriculture and writing. However, not everyone agrees with this interpretation. Some alternative researchers and conspiracy theorists believe that the Anunnaki were not just mythical gods, but rather ancient extraterrestrial beings who visited Earth in the distant past. They argue that the Anunnaki may have been responsible for many of the technological and architectural wonders of the ancient world, such as the pyramids in Egypt and the Stonehenge monument in England. They also purpose a theory that claims that the Anunnaki most likely had a hand in shaping human evolution through genetic engineering or direct intervention. Despite the many claims about the Anunnaki, almost no scientific evidence exists to support any of these theories. Most historians and scholars generally dismiss the idea of the Anunnaki as nothing more than a myth or fantasy story just created by the ancient Sumerians. However, the mystery and intrigue surrounding these ancient creatures continue to excite the imagination of people around the world. One of the most controversial claims about the Anunnaki is that they actually visited Earth in the distant past and interacted with ancient human civilizations such as the Sumerians. According to this theory, they came to Earth in search of gold. They established a base in Mesopotamia where they taught the people various skills and technologies and were worshipped as gods. Proponents of this theory cite a variety of evidence to support their claims. For example, some ancient texts, such as the Sumerian cuneiform tablets, mention that the Anunnaki and their interaction with humans. When the gods instead of men did the work, carried the burden of the gods was too great, the work too hard, the problems too many. The great Anunnaki made the Gigi carry the burden 7 times. Astrohasis, an ancient Sumerian epic about the creation of mankind. In those days, the world was teeming with monsters and demons, and men were their slaves until the gods created a champion to save them. The epic Gilgamesh, an ancient Sumerian poem. After the flood was poured out and the royal authority came down from heaven, the royal authority was in Kish. Sumerian King List, a list of Sumerian rulers and their reigns. In those days, the Anunnaki came down to Earth to rule the people and taught them many things. Enuma Elish, an ancient Babylonian myth about the creation of the world. These quotes illustrate the various ways the Anunnaki are mentioned in ancient Sumerian and Babylonian texts, including their involvement in the creation of humanity and their interaction with ancient civilizations. Proponents of the theory also point to various ancient structures, such as the pyramids in Egypt and the Nazca lines in Peru, as evidence of advanced technology that can only have been created with the help of the Anunnaki. However, historians and scholars are highly skeptical of these claims. They argue that much of the so-called evidence of the Anunnaki visitation can easily be explained by natural processes or human ingenuity. According to them, for example, the Egyptian pyramids were built using simple but effective techniques that are well documented, and the Nazca lines were probably created for religious or cultural reasons rather than extraterrestrial intervention. Furthermore, they rely mostly on the fact that there is no scientific evidence to support the idea that the Anunnaki were actually extraterrestrial beings who visited Earth. The mainstream scientific community claims that it has yet to find any evidence of life beyond Earth, and the idea of ancient aliens visiting Earth is generally considered by them to be pseudoscientific or fringe belief. While the idea of Anunnaki visiting Earth is certainly intriguing, for now it remains a matter of speculation and conjecture. One of the most controversial theories about the Anunnaki is that they created humanity as a hybrid race to serve them as slaves. According to this theory, they used genetic engineering to create a hybrid species that was intelligent enough to work as their slave, but not smart enough to challenge their authority. Proponents of this theory cite a variety of evidence to support their claims. They state that the story of the Anunnaki fits very closely with the ancient Sumerian creation myth, which tells how the gods created humans to serve them as workers. They also point to various anatomical and psychological differences between humans and other primates, such as the ability to walk upright and the brain size, as evidence of a genetic manipulation. However, the scientific community is highly skeptical of these claims. They state that there is no scientific evidence to support the idea of genetic engineering by the Anunnaki or other extraterrestrials. They also point to the fact that there's no evidence to support the idea of an intelligent design behind human evolution. Instead, they suggest that the evolution of humans was a natural process that took place over millions of years. Despite skepticism from the mainstream scientific community, the theory that the Anunnaki created humanity as a slave race continues to be popular among humans. Whether or not there is any truth to this theory remains an unanswered question for now. According to alternative researchers and theorists, the Anunnaki had a significant influence on the development of ancient civilizations such as the Sumerians and the Babylonians. They argue that the Anunnaki not only influenced the development of technology and agriculture, but also shaped the religion and mythology of these cultures. For example, proponents of this theory point to various ancient texts and artifacts as evidence of their influence. They argue that the Sumerian cuneiform tablets describe a complex pantheon of gods, many of whom are said to be Anunnaki, and that the myths and legends associated with them bear striking similarities to stories from the ancient cultures, such as Egyptian and Greek myths. They also point to various architectural and technological wonders of the ancient world as evidence of advanced knowledge and technology that could only have been acquired with the help of the Anunnaki. Skeptics, however, respond that the similarities between the myths and legends of different cultures can be explained by culture diffusion, and that the architectural and technological achievements of the ancient world were the result of human ingenuity rather than extraterrestrial intervention. One of the most intriguing theories about the Anunnaki is that they are related to the biblical story of the Nephilim, also called giants or colossi. According to the book of Genesis, the Nephilim are a group of giants who are said to have lived on earth before the Great Flood. Some alternative researchers and theorists claim that the Nephilim are the offspring of relationships between Anunnaki and human women. Proponents of this theory point to various ancient texts and artifacts as evidence of this connection. They claim that the Sumerian cuneiform tablets mention that the Anunnaki were responsible for creating a hybrid race of beings on Earth. as evidence for the existence of the Nephilim. They also point to various references to giants and other supernatural beings in the Bible and other ancient texts. When the Anunnaki, who are 7, the judges of the underworld, decided that the destinies of mankind, they established the Anunnaki as heavenly judges. The Descent of Ina, an ancient Sumerian poem. The sons of God, seeing that the daughters of men were beautiful, took wives of whom all they chose. Genesis chapter 6, verse 2, a passage from the Bible. In those days there were giants on the earth, and moreover, after the sons of God came into the daughters of men, and they bore them sons, these were the mighty and famous men of old. Genesis chapter 6, verse 4, a passage from the Bible. These citations suggest that the Anunnaki may have played a role in creating a hybrid race of beings on Earth, possibly including the Nephilim, who are described as giants, colossi, or heroes in the various ancient texts. However, it is important to note that these passages are open to interpretation. As with any historical claim or theory, it is important to approach them with a critical eye and consider multiple perspectives before drawing any conclusion. Scientists and historians, for example, are extremely skeptical of these claims. They argue that the idea of the Nephilim as a race of giants is more metaphorical due to the lack of scientific evidence to support this thesis. Despite ongoing debate over the existence and influence of the Anunnaki in antiquity, their myth has had a significant impact on modern popular culture. In recent years, the Anunnaki have been featured in several films, books, and video games, often as powerful and mysterious beings with advanced knowledge and technology. One of the most notable examples of Anunnaki's inspiration is the sci-fi film Avatar by director James Cameron. The film features a race of blue-skinned, 10-meter-tall creatures called the Na'vi, who bears a striking resemblance to the descriptions of the Anunnaki in ancient Sumerian texts. In addition to movies, the Anunnaki have been the subject of numerous books and television shows, many of which explore the various myths and legends associated with these mysterious beings. Despite their popularity in modern culture, the true nature and influence of the Anunnaki remain unknown. Regardless of their true nature, they remain a fascinating and mysterious subject of study, and their influence on ancient civilization and modern popular culture continues to be a source of intrigue and inspiration for many. Ultimately, the history of the Anunnaki remains a matter of debate and speculation, and everyone decides for themselves what they believe about this mysterious, enigmatic race of beings. Whether real or imagined, they are a fascinating and thought-provoking part of human history and culture and will continue to inspire curiosity and wonder for generations to come.
We will travel back in time to explore some of the most fascinating Sumerian texts ever deciphered. They tell the story of Enki, the god of water, wisdom, and magic, and his connection with the Great Flood that destroyed much of humanity. This myth appears in the epic accounts of Atrahasis and Gilgamesh around 2000 BC, which is 1,000 years before the first record of Noah's flood, and calls into question the credibility of the later biblical account. But as with many other ancient stories, there are many historical mysteries and alternative theories surrounding this event. According to the Sumerian text, Enki expressed a special wish. He wanted the memory of the flood to survive. But why would the god of water and wisdom have such a strange wish? As the story progresses, we see that Anunnakis chose to stay on Earth after the flood, while others left for their home planet of Nibiru. What has caused this division among them? Was there no disagreement about the flood? The leaders took oaths of silence. What were they trying to keep a secret? What were they afraid to reveal? We also read about the rescue of Marduk, who was given a new body and sent to live in peace on another planet. Is this just a myth, Or did the ancient Sumerians possess knowledge we are yet to discover? As we examine the ancient texts and the mysterious events described in them, we ask ourselves, was there more to the story of Enki and the flood than what we still don't know? Were the ancient Sumerians initiated into knowledge that we have not yet discovered? Ryan Moorhen is a biblical archaeologist who has devoted himself to the ancient Sumerian text. His work sheds new light on some of the most fascinating mysteries of human history. He pieces together clues from these ancient writings and discovers theories that challenge commonly held beliefs about the past. Moorhen has carefully examined ancient artifacts and deciphered ancient texts to uncover the secrets of this lost civilization. His conclusions have been met with skepticism as they challenge many long-held fundamental beliefs about the origins of human civilization. But Ryan remains steadfast, pursuing the truth with passion and dedication. Let's delve into his research and the deciphered account of Enki and the flood recorded over 4,000 years ago. Enki's desire for the memory of the flood to survive. The Sumerian god Enki shared a strange wish. He wanted a catastrophic flood to destroy all living things on Earth and its memory to live on afterwards. Enki's request was met with surprise and confusion by the other gods, but Enlil, his brother and leader of the Anunnaki gods, did not give his approval. When all eyes were on Ninmah, the goddess of creation, she announced that her life's work was on Earth and she would not forsake the human beings she had created. Her words angered Enlil, who was outraged by the abomination of the earthlings and declared that they should be allowed to perish for their sins. Enki, as well as Ninmah, saw in human beings a wonderful creation, the result of their efforts. He argued that they provided primitive workers with the opportunity to reproduce and endowed them with knowledge. He reminded his brother that they hold in their hands the power of the entire Creator. Despite their differences, Enlil announced that all leaders must solemnly swear to allow events to unfold according to his wishes. Enki's desire for the memory of the flood to live on was prompted by him seeing something more in people than just a failed race. He thought that if a select few pious and sane people did survive to keep the horror of the flood in their memories and live with the lessons of what happened, everything would most likely be put right. This raises some questions about the nature of the gods, their relationship with humanity, and their understanding of the universe. Questions we continue to explore. Some Anunnaki choose to stay on Earth. As the flood approached and some of the Anunnaki decided to stay on Earth, they believed they could weather the storm and continue their rule over humanity. However, the floods proved too strong, even for those mighty creatures. They tried to survive while the world was swallowed by their water, and eventually many of them died. Those who survived were forced to adapt to a new world in which humans became the dominant species. They tried to maintain their power and influence over humanity, but found their abilities diminished in this new world. As time passed, the Anunnaki became more secretive, working behind the scenes to exert their influence over humanity. The years passed, and to us men, they came and became more memories of gods and goddesses who once ruled. Many researchers believe that the Anunnaki not only continue to exist to this day, but also determine the course of human history. While there is no concrete evidence to support this theory, it remains an enticing possibility that continues to inspire speculation and investigation into the topic. The storage of various species by Enki and Ninmah. The waters continued to rise, and Enki and Ninmah were not content simply to save humanity from extinction. They also set out to preserve a wide variety of animals and plant species to ensure that the earth would be able to recover after the waters receded. Some evidence suggests that Enki and Ninmah were aided in this task by other members of the Anunnaki who worked tirelessly to collect and preserve as many species as possible. Atrahasis, at Enki's behest, built a huge vessel and loaded it with everything from ants and beetles to elephants and giraffes, the conditions on board being carefully controlled to ensure that each creature had the best possible chance of survival. It's not entirely clear why Enki and Ninmah were so devoted to the preservation of such a wide variety of species. Some suggest that they simply felt it was their duty to protect all life forms, while others believe that they may have had more practical considerations in mind. One intriguing theory holds that they actually worked to create a new ecosystem on Earth that was better adapted to the post-flood environment. By conserving diverse species, they hope to usher in a new, more resilient ecosystem that will thrive even after a devastating global catastrophe. Of course, we may never know for sure what motivated Enki and Ninmah to undertake such a monumental task. But what is clear is that their efforts helped ensure the survival of countless species and set the stage for the eventual resurgence of life on Earth. Saving Marduk. As the waters began to recede, Enki and Ninmah devised a plan to rescue Marduk from his watery prison. Marduk was imprisoned in the underworld for defying the council of the Anunnaki and helping to save humanity. Enki knew that he had to act fast if he wanted to save him. He sent his son Nabu in the underworld to retrieve Marduk. He managed to find him and bring him to the surface, but Marduk was badly wounded and half alive. Enki and Ninmah used their knowledge of genetics to create a new body for Marduk, using DNA from his old body and DNA from other beings. His new body was strong and healthy, and he was able to inhabit it. However, the Council of the Anunnaki still considered him a criminal and ordered his execution. Enki and Ninmah, who had loved Marduk during this time on Earth, were determined to save him. They came up with a daring plan to remove him from Earth and transport him to a distant planet where he could live out his days in peace. The plan required the cooperation of several other Anunnaki who were sworn to secrecy. Thus, they were able to carry out their plan, and Marduk was saved from certain death. The council was furious when it found out what had happened. Enki and Ninmah were forced to take an oath of silence that prevented them from revealing the truth about saving Marduk. The events surrounding his rescue and subsequent concealment remain one of the greatest mysteries in ancient Sumerian history. However, this passage again reveals the possibility of the Anunnaki leaving Earth and inhabiting other planets. Were they able to create life on other planets? Did they possess knowledge beyond our understanding? These are just some of the questions we continue to explore. Oaths of silence taken by leaders. As life on Earth begins to recover, a new chapter in human history is about to unfold. According to some theories, the events that occurred during and after the flood were not fully disclosed to the public, and some leaders took an oath of silence to keep the truth hidden. The Anunnaki who remained on Earth after the flood faced a difficult decision. They had to rebuild civilization from scratch and had to decide which knowledge and technology to pass on to the people. Some of them believed that the humanity should be allowed to grow and develop independently without the intervention of the advanced beings. Others, that is capable of surviving on its own without their guidance. The Anunnaki leaders took a solemn oath to keep the truth hidden from us humans. They would only reveal certain knowledge and technology if it was necessary for our survival. This secret has been kept for thousands of years, with only a select few initiates gaining access to the full knowledge of the Anunnaki. Some argue that there is no evidence to support these theories, while others point to ancient texts and legends to support their validity. But haven't you sometimes wondered how discoveries, inventions, etc. suddenly appear in our history that move us decades ahead? Is there not something bigger behind it? Or are these discoveries just the fruit of genius people? Introduction of Earth years and creation of sanctuaries and festivals. After the flood, Enki and his fellow Anunnaki tried to establish a new order on Earth. They introduced the concept of Earth years and created shrines and festivals to mark the survival of different species and the new beginning of life on Earth. Enki instructed the surviving humans on the concept of counting years, which they were used to mark time and celebrate various events. The festivals included the Antiquity festival, which marked the beginning of the new year and the renewal of the earth, and the Zakmuk festival, which celebrated Marduk's victory over the forces of chaos. He also created sanctuaries and were dedicated to the preservation of various species and served as a reminder of the Anunnaki's responsibility to protect life on Earth. It remains a mystery, however, whether the Anunnaki did not have more selfish motives for introducing these concepts. Did they not use earthly years and festivals to assert their control over human civilization and maintain their power and influence? The choice of a deserving person to maintain civilized humanity after an impending catastrophe. In the deciphered Sumerian account of Enki and the flood, in the end, the gods decided that a man must be chosen to preserve civilized mankind after an impending catastrophe. The candidate had to be worthy and righteous, someone who could be entrusted with the sacred knowledge of the gods. This raises many questions about the nature of the coming catastrophe, as well as the identity and qualifications of the chosen person. Is it a natural disaster that they have predicted is coming to the future, or something else? And who was deemed worthy enough to carry on this legacy of the gods? It has been suggested that this candidate may have been an actual historical figure, while others believe that it was a metaphorical representation of the human race as a whole. Nevertheless, the idea of a chosen one tasked with preserving the knowledge and values of higher power is a recurring theme in the mythology and religion of various cultures. Perhaps the story of Enki and the flood serves as a cautionary tale, reminding us that our actions have consequences and that we should strive to be worthy of the trust and knowledge we are giving. Or perhaps it's a call to action, a message that we must prepare for the challenges ahead and strive to be the best versions of ourselves so that we're ready to meet whatever awaits us. Whatever the interpretation, the story of Enki and the flood continues to intrigue us, inviting us to ponder these mysteries of our past and the possibilities of our future. Over the years, in numerous regions of ancient Mesopotamia, scholars have discovered tablets with one of the most ancient manuscripts ever to exist. It's called the Sumerian King List. It details how in the distant past, our planet was ruled by 8 mysterious kings over a period of 241,000 years. The list itself literally says, "After the kingdom came down from heaven, the kingdom was in Eridu," and tells the incredible story of the reign. In the record, it is noted, in 5 cities, 8 kings. They ruled for 241,200 years. Then the flood came in. But how is it possible for 8 kings to rule the earth for 241,000 years? Also, not only does the Sumerian King List state how long they ruled on earth, it specifically says that they came down from heaven. The list details how these kings met their end during the great flood that swept the earth and goes on to detail what happens after that. Another kingdom is set down from heaven, and these mysterious kings once again rule over man. But is the Sumerian King List a mix of historical, verifiable rulers and mythological creatures? Or have scholars simply categorized some of them as mythological because of their particular characteristics? For decades, people believed that the history described in the Sumerian King List was simply a collection of mythological accounts. Today, more authors and researchers disagree, suggesting that the contents of the list may not be mythological at all, pointing to the fact that scholars already partially recognize some of the king detailed in the list. Is it possible that what is recorded in the list is an actual historical reference? Could it be that thousands of years before modern history, our planet was ruled by kings from another world who came to Earth from a distant place in the universe to rule over us? Do you allow for the possibility that these long reigns were possible at a time when civilization, society, and our planet were much different than today? If you are still in doubt, here is the time to note that the earliest listed ruler is today an archaeological confirmed historical figure. This is Enmebersi from Kish. He is penultimate, king of the first dynasty of Kish, and is recorded as having reigned for 900 years, died around 2700 BC. The Sumerian king list, also known as the Chronicle of the Sole Monarchy, is an ancient literal composition written in Sumerian, probably created to legitimize the claims to power of various city-states and kingdoms in southern Mesopotamia during the late 3rd and early 2nd millennial BC. It does so by repeatedly listed Sumerian cities, the kings who ruled there, and the length of their reigns. In the early part of the list, these reigns often span thousands of years. The oldest known version is dated to the year 3rd period, around 2112 to 2004 BC, but was probably composed based on much older Akkadian source material. In its best known and best preserved version, the list begins with a series of antediluvian kings who ruled before the flood covered the earth, after which the kingdom was restored to Kish. It ends with the Yixan dynasty of the early 2nd millennial BC, which is well known from other contemporary sources. It should also be noted that what is commonly referred to as the Sumerian king list is not a single text. Rather, it is a literary composition of various versions that existed over time. All the sources found are in the form of clay tablets or cylinders and are written in Sumerian. 16 different tablets or fragments containing parts of the text are known. Most of them were found in various places in Mesopotamia. Most are found in Nippur. There is only one manuscript that contains an almost intact version of the composition. This is the Weld-Blundell prism, which includes the antediluvian part of the composition and ends with the Isin dynasty. What does the Sumerian king list contain? Lines 1 through 39. Before the flood. This section begins with the line, "After the kingdom came down from heaven, the kingdom was in Eridu." 2 kings of Eridu are mentioned before the city fell, and royalty was taken at Bad Tibera. This pattern of cities gaining a kingdom and then falling or being defeated, only to be succeeded by the next, is present throughout the text. Remarkably, this is almost always described in exactly the same words. This section mentions 8 kings who ruled over 5 cities. The length of each reign is also indicated, and they vary between 43,200 and 28,800 years for a total of 241,200 years. The section ends with the line, "Then the flood came." Among the kings mentioned in this section is the ancient Mesopotamian god Dumyazid, lines 40 through 265, the first dynasty of Kish to Lugal-Zagesi. After the flood came and the kingdom came down from heaven again, the kingdom was in Kish. After this well-known line, the section continues with a list of 23 kings of Kish who ruled for shorter periods, between 1500 and 300 years, for a total of 24,510 years. Apart from the length of their reigns and whether they were sons of the predecessors, no other details are mentioned about them. The exceptions are Atana, who ascended to heaven and consolidated all foreign countries, and Enmebersi, who made the land of the Elamites. Enmebersi is also the first king in the Sumerian king list, whose name is attested in contemporary records. His successor, Aga of Kish, the last king mentioned before Kish fell and the kingdom was taken by Eanna, also appears in the poem Gilgamesh and Aga. The next lines up to Sargon of Akkad show a constant succession of cities and kings, usually without much detail beyond the length of individual reigns. Each entry is structured the same way. The city where the kingdom is located is recorded, followed by the kings and how long they reigned, followed by a brief summary and a final line indicating where the kingdom was next. An apt example of this is found in lines 134 to 147. At Masanapata becomes king, he ruled for 80 years. Meskeannan, the son of Meskenapata, became king, he ruled for 36 years. Alulu ruled for 25 years. Balulu ruled for 36 years. 4 kings ruled for 171 years. Then was defeated, and the kingdom was taken from Avan. Individual reigns range in length from 1,200 years for Lugalbanda of Uruk to 6 years for another Uruk king and several Akshak kings. The number of years in office decreases as we go down the list. The earlier part of this section mentions several kings who are also known for other literal sources. These are Dumzid, the fisherman, and Gilgamesh, although virtually no kings from the earlier part of this section appear in records dating from the actual period in which they are supposed to have lived. Lines 211 through 223 describe a dynasty from Mari, which was the city outside of Sumer itself, but played an important role in the history of Mesopotamia during the late 3rd and early 2nd millennial BCE. The subsequent 3rd dynasty of Kish consisted of a single ruler, Kug-Ba, the woman tavern keeper, who is believed to be the only queen including the Sumerian king list. The last 2 of the dynasties of this section, the 4th of Kish and the 3rd of Uruk, provide a link to the next section. Sargon of Akkad is mentioned in the Sumerian king list as a cupbearer to Zababa of Kish, and he defeated Lugal-Sage-Si of Uruk before establishing his own dynasty. Lines 266 to 377, Akkad to Eisen. This section is dedicated to the famous Akkadian ruler Sargon and his successors. After the record of Shar-Kali-Sheri, the Sumerian king list reads, "Then, who was king? Who was not king?" suggesting a period of chaos and uncertain times during which the Akkadian Empire came to an end. 4 kings are mentioned as ruling for a total of only 3 years. One of the Akkadian kings mentioned after Shar-Kali-Shar, only the names of Dudu and Shuturul are attested in records dating from the Akkadian period. The Akkadian dynasty was succeeded by the 4th dynasty of Uruk, 2 kings of which Ur-Nigan and his son Ur-Gagir appear in other contemporary records. The kingship was then taken to the land of army of Gutium, who were said to have had no kings at first and to have ruled only for several years. After the brief episode, 21 Guthian kings are listed before the fall of Guthium, and the kingdom was taken to Uruk. One only ruler is named during the reign period, Utu-Higel, before he moved to Ur. The so-called 3rd dynasty of Ur consisted of 5 kings who ruled between 9 and 46 years. No other details are given. The list notes that once the rule of Ur was removed, the very foundation of Sumer was torn apart. The kings of Yishan are the last dynasty to be listed. It consisted of 14 kings who ruled between 3 and 33 years. As with the Ur 3rd dynasty, no details are given about the reigns of individual kings. Lines 378 through 431 are summary. This summary mentions the number of kings and their accumulated years of reign for each city, as well as the number of times that city received a kingship. What worries scholars most today is the inability to explain the reigns of any of the most ancient rulers with anything that fits our common accepted norms. Although a large part of these kings are also heroes of the ancient Sumerian and Babylonian legends and epics, they remain denied by our science as being mythological. Many researchers are trying to find an explanation for these long reigns, such as the hypothesis that these figures were a kind of hyperbole expressing their power, triumph, or importance of the people for which they relate to. For example, in ancient Egypt, the phrase, "he died at the age of 110," referred to those who lived full lives and gave an important contribution to society. According to historians, people use such terms as a reward to their rulers for their unlimited power and the importance of what they did for the state. Another hypothesis claims that the system of counting time before and after the flood changed, and therefore the reigns became shorter and shorter. The last reigns described in the list, however, are generally accepted as historically real, having been proven by existing archaeological finds. History knows many hypotheses related to antiquity, which were denied by scientists as impossible, but over time, indisputable artifacts have refuted them. Only time will tell whether this case is the same.